Let's take a look. NFL offseason report for all 32 teams, again from Pro Football Focus. So free agency recap for the Browns. Browns made it a point to improve interior defensive line, starting with the addition of Dalvin Tomlinson. Best move of the offseason, in addition to defensive line-focused moves in the draft and free agency, the team also traded 2 future late-round picks to Minnesota for Zadarius Smith, who racked up 84 total pressures last year for the Vikings. How good were those moves relative to the needs of what the Browns had in the offseason?
I'm not sure many teams match their needs with what they did better than the Cleveland Browns, especially when you take into account the resources available. I mean, we just talked about they needed to improve the defensive line, and they went crazy there with 3 big moves to address the situation. And then I think we talked probably a bunch about those tertiary weapons, those secondary complementary weapons in the receiving game. And they obviously go out and add Elijah Moore, make some draft picks to that effect as well. So I really do think you don't always want to just go after need. I think you can get yourself into trouble sometimes, but I think the way they were structured coming into this offseason, it really was, there are a couple of glaring holes, and fortunately the rest of the roster is in a good spot, both from a starter standpoint and with some solid depth, so we can really focus like all of our resources on a couple specific spots, and I think they did just that.
Same article from Pro Football Focus, outlook for 2023, and they say similar to the Ravens, the Browns have pieces on both sides of the ball to make a championship run as long as their quarterback returns to form. A little bit earlier in the show, we showed, and yesterday as well, we showed Kurt Warner kind of breaking down Deshaun Watson. Some of the trouble with Watson late on delivering the ball to his receivers, those are kind of things you would expect. New system, new teammates, haven't played in 700 days. Fair to say that?
Certainly fair to say that. The rust is only going to exacerbate that issue. I do think that is a little bit, Deshaun Watson historically as well. He likes to, wait till a guy comes open as opposed to always throwing players open. He's willing to, turn down a good throw to wait for a great one, which of course sometimes is phenomenal. It turns into highlight plays, explosive plays, and touchdowns. But I do think the marriage between him and Kevin Stefanski will come down to, can Stefanski also convince him, hey, don't wait for Amari Cooper to get open on a double move if David Njoku's open for 10 yards or Elijah Moore is open for 7. Like, making those concessions and taking what the defense gives you, I do think still is the biggest area for growth outside of just shaking off that rust that is understandable.
The other thing that we've talked about, you look at Russell Wilson, that's a guy that's 30-some years old. Aaron Rodgers, 38, 39, 40 years old. Deshaun Watson's 27. He'll be 28 during the season. It's not very often that a guy that age who has been to that many Pro Bowls, 3, becomes available, is it?
No, it's a one-of-one situation, a one-of-one circumstance that, who knows if we see it again for a very long period of time. So, yeah, that's the thing, is there's not really a rush. I mean, there is in the sense that they do have a handful of, I guess, guys that may not be there for the long haul, but realistically, you look at the pillars and, cornerstones of this franchise right now. Denzel Ward's not going anywhere. Myles Garrett's not going anywhere. Obviously, Watson is not either. The offensive line, yeah, a couple guys, the guards, going to be getting up there in age a little bit, but they're not exactly, ancient by any means. It really is, there can be patience. I think, the lack of patience this year is simply, we just want to see the investment lead to the results, and just see a competitive football team, because on paper, the roster, I think, stacks up against anybody.